Hello, Griffith Panthers. Today in Advocacy, we're going to tackle the discussion of depression. It's an important topic for us, especially during this time of the year. Hopefully, by the time you watch this video and see it all the way through, you'll be able to talk to others intelligently about what depression is and is not, and even maybe be able to identify some supports that are in place here at Griffith to help students who may be dealing with some of these issues, or maybe be able to refer a loved one if you are feeling like maybe somebody that you love or care about might be going through some of these topics that we're going to be discussing today. It's important to note when we start talking about depression that normal sadness is absolutely a part of life that everybody deals with. It is natural to feel sad and go through the grieving process after the loss of a loved one or the ending of a relationship, or even something like the ending of a life, like of a family pet or something to that effect. Sadness is absolutely a normal emotion. Everybody goes through it, and it's important to note that there's definitely a difference between sadness and depression. It's important to notice when somebody slips from sadness into something that is more challenging. There's a little bit of vocabulary that I want to make sure that we're on the same page on before we continue the presentation. The first one is apathy. The word apathy simply means it's almost the absence of emotion. It's the absence of sadness. It's beyond an emotion, and it really goes into this feeling of not caring about anything. It's one thing to feel sad, it's one thing to feel happy, it's one thing to feel love, but to feel apathy is actually to feel nothing where there was passion before. The second word I'm going to use is chronic. Chronic simply means, in medical terms, over a period of time or something that is consistent. So if you have something like depression versus chronic depression, you're talking about a depression over a long period of time. This is the specific definition of depression. But one of the things that's important to note is sadness over time, coupled with apathy, as we mentioned before, the inactivity or the ability to concentrate. Some people see an increase or decrease in appetite. Some see an increase in the amount of sleeping that is done. And some people also see the depression is coupled with anxiety at times, where people have difficulty focusing on topics throughout the day, simply because of the feelings that they're going through, the challenges that they're facing, as well as the lack of ability to focus on any specific situation that's happening in their life. I know some of you are probably wondering, why are we talking about this? Why is it important? And really, why are we talking about this right now? The reason I wanted to have this discussion today is simple. We're entering the fall, part of the school year, and the reality of it is depression can be triggered by changes in the weather, changes in the season. There's actually a disorder called SAD, S-A-D, or seasonal affective disorder, where people who do not get exposed to sunlight over a period of time can actually fall into a sadness or a depression. There is a chemical reaction when the sun hits the skin, and it releases positive chemicals inside of the body. And if we're not getting enough sun, that can certainly be an issue. The second thing is, it's important to note that 1 out of every 10 teens has been estimated to deal with depression at some point during their teenage years. So this is something that, you think about the people in your classroom. The challenge is, the reality of it is, there may be people in your room that are suffering in silence, and what we want to do is provide support to them and let them know that they're not alone. It has been theorized by scientists and doctors that depression can be linked to genetics. So it's important to have those conversations with your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, people in your bloodline, people that you share blood and genetics with. That if you know that there are people in your family that have dealt with depression, have possibly been diagnosed with depression, or have had or you've seen struggle with it, it's important to note that, and it's important to let a physician know, because they can be aware of that as being something that you may have more predisposition to deal with. And all that means is, well, does it necessarily guarantee that you're going to deal with depression? No, but it does make it possibly more likely, and it makes something that your physician can look out for. As a teenager, it's very, very important for you to identify what resources are out there for you. Oftentimes, people who are slipping into depression They're not able to recognize what their resources are, the people that are supporting them, and they may not feel the energy or the ability to reach out to somebody that can help. What we're trying to do with this video is maybe identify some of the resources that are out there and give people a chance to receive the support that they possibly may need. We've already covered this, but it's just worth mentioning again that genetics does play a significant role in depression. People who have depression that has run through the family can oftentimes get help quicker because they know that it might be something that they're susceptible to. It's important to think of depression more in terms of something like high blood pressure or diabetes or cancer running in your family. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to deal with it, but it maybe does give you a higher disposition. The possibility might be greater than it might be for somebody else. So it's important to know your family bloodline when you can. There are some other issues that we want to make sure that everybody's very clear about. Number one, it is believed, it is theorized that it has to do with a chemical imbalance in the brain. So this is not something necessarily that we can control by ourselves when we're talking about chronic depression. Again, it's important that we know we're not talking about general sadness. We're talking about something that is over a period of time and includes some of the other symptoms that we discussed before, including apathy, including the chronic fatigue, things of that nature along with that. Again, your physician can help you identify whether or not you might be dealing with depression, or you may just be going through the stages of grief if you've lost a loved one or you're going through a difficult time in your life. Especially for guys, but really for everybody, it's important to note that when you're dealing with depression, or when you might be dealing with depression, it's not about being a weak person. It's not about being weak-minded. It's not about being weird or abnormal. It's absolutely a very, very common thing that people deal with. A lot of people don't talk about it, so we think that it's not happening, but the reality of it is you're going to walk in the hallway today past people who deal with depression, have dealt with it successfully, or possibly are more susceptible to it than you realize. It's very, very natural. It's normal. It's a part of being a human being. That being said, dealing with depression successfully is not about toughening up. It's not about sucking it up or anything like that. It's not about being tougher or being weak or anything like that. It has to do with things that are going on inside of the body that are really and truly, for some levels, beyond our control. There are some things that we can do, but it's important to recognize where our limitations are and where we need to start asking for help. We also know, especially with students, that suffering or dealing with depression can have a negative effect on a lot of areas of your life, including relationships, your schoolwork and your grades, any jobs or after-school jobs that you have, and even extracurricular things like sports, hobbies, things like that. It's important to note that a lot of times people who are suffering from depression either are apathetic to these negative effects or maybe not even realizing that they're doing it. Some things that you might notice are people who are pulling away from the people that they love or people they spend time with, possibly not wanting to spend time with people, not wanting to go out, not enjoying hobbies that they've enjoyed in the past. These are just a few signs that we might look for if we're concerned about a friend or even ourselves. Depression can manifest itself physically, which means there are some physical traits that people who deal with depression may be going through. One of them is chronic fatigue, and simply what that is a lack of energy. You wake up tired, you're tired throughout the day, you don't feel like you have the energy to do the things that you normally have a passion for. Everything feels like a chore, even things that you traditionally enjoy doing. There can also be aches and pains, the body can feel uncomfortable, and a lot of people who deal with depression find themselves sleeping a lot more than what would be normal for most. Again, you have to remember the seasonal affective disorder that we discussed about, where this sometimes can, again, kind of manifest itself during this time of the year where we just aren't getting as much sunshine as we do in the spring and the summertime. Even if you are not somebody who deals with depression, as a friend of others in our community, it's important to kind of understand what's going on and understand what some of the issues are, so that you may be able to notice when one of your friends is dealing with the situation. You might be able to help them through it, might be able to provide them with some resources, or at least refer to them to places where they can get help. really and truly, as a community of learners and as a community of Griffith, it's important that we watch out for one another, not only staff, but students, that we are making sure that people aren't suffering in silence, and that the people that we love, the people that are a part of our lives, are getting the help that they need. It is important to note that if depression is not treated, if it's not handled appropriately, that it can be life-threatening. There are a small population of people who deal with depression that can actually contemplate suicide as a permanent solution to a temporary problem if they don't feel like there's any outs. The reality of it is, if we can get our loved ones the support that they need, or at least identify the supports that are in place for them, we can avoid that situation. We can get people the help that they need, and we can really make sure that our loved ones live the types of lives that they're supposed to be living. For reasons that we do not understand yet, women are twice as likely as men to become depressed. Now, we don't necessarily know if this is because women are more likely to stand up and note that there's a problem and get help than men, but for whatever reason, women are twice as likely to become depressed. That's something that's very, very important to note. A common form of depression is postpartum depression, which is when a woman has delivered a child and she's dealing with an infant. This can be an afterthought right after pregnancy. So that's fairly common, and it's something that can be addressed through a physician. It's important to know what we can do. Things that we can do to help our community. Number one is identify some of these traits in yourself. If this is something that you're dealing with, we're going to make sure that you get the support that you need. And just as importantly, there's somebody in your life that you love, if a student that you see on a regular basis, a classmate, a lifelong friend is dealing with some of these things that we're talking about, you can be there for them. You can make sure that they know that you're there for them, and you can also help guide them towards support that they can get that will help them in a positive manner. One thing that we can also do is make sure that we're focusing on positive stress relief techniques. As I mentioned before with the seasonal affective disorder, just getting out and going for a walk can be a huge relief for somebody that's dealing with sadness or depression. Now, the challenge, the tricky part of it is they may not feel like doing that at all, but there can be some real positive benefits for that. It's important that we avoid negative relief techniques like alcohol, which serves the body as a depressant, smoking marijuana, doing other negative drugs or drugs that were not prescribed by a doctor. These things can actually make the problems even worse because of the reactions our bodies can have to these chemicals. As a community, we can support one another. We can support our classmates and notice when somebody's behavior or personality has changed significantly. Notice when somebody is not eating or is eating a lot more than they're used to. Notice when a friend is no longer engaging in the hobbies and the passions that they used to enjoy a great deal. The second thing we can all do for one another is avoid the bullying. Bullying is simply picking on somebody over a period of time. It's an imbalance of power, and it's pointing out things that maybe make us different. The reality of it is that there is no normal. We are all going through life. We're all on our journey, and we're all in different places. And the reality of it is, just because I wear a pair of shoes that are different than the brand that you like, or I wear my hair a little bit different, or my skin is a different color than yours, it doesn't mean that you're any better or worse than me. It just means that we're different. We need to celebrate those differences, support one another, and make sure that we create an environment here at Griffith where people get the help that they need, whether it be in math, English, or something as serious as dealing with grieving or even further with depression. Again, I'm going to emphasize again that focusing on positive stress relief activities, doing things that you love, getting outside, talking to some of the support systems that we're going to be talking about here briefly. These are all good ideas for people who you might be concerned about with depression. Let's look at resources. You have your teachers that you can talk to. You have your friends that you can speak with. And we also have a wonderful guidance counselor system here at Griffith. They can, if they can't help you personally, then they can help you identify resources so you can get in contact with somebody that can help you. It's important to see your family physician as a very positive resource, especially if you have a physician that takes care of your entire family. They're going to be aware of what other people in your family are dealing with, and if you have if you have a predisposition for this genetically, they can get you some help, and they can remind you that this is a normal thing, that this is something that a lot of people go through, and that it can be dealt with, it can be supported, and really and truly the way that you're feeling in terms of apathy and fatigue and inactivity, it's not normal. It's not the way you're supposed to feel in that way, and that there is help that is available. This number here, this 1-800 number, is a talk hotline where if no other of your resources are available, you should be able to feel comfortable calling and talking to these people. It might just be you need an ear, somebody to give some advice or somebody to talk to, or it may be where you need to reach out and locate resources for yourself. And again, there's a lot of support systems in place. It's important that either you reach out to them, or if you are a friend of someone who might be dealing with some of these issues, that you guide them in that direction in a positive way. Again, we need to take this seriously, and we need to provide support systems for people in our community, people that we care about, our loved ones. If this video has opened some questions for you, please remember that you can talk to your guidance counselors, you can talk to your administrative staff, you can talk to your physician about it, but you can also go online and learn more. It's important that you look at reliable resources. WebMD is absolutely one of those resources. They have an extensive website that covers depression, what it is, what it isn't, and how you can get treatment, and how the types of treatments that are available. Treatments have even changed in the last 10 years in terms of the medicine that is available for people. And it's important that if you meet with a physician, that they not only acknowledge that you do have depression if that's something that you're dealing with, but also what medicines are going to work most effectively for your specific situation. It's important to know your genetic background with your parents. Even if you have a relationship that is unique and you don't have a close relationship with your family and people in your gene pool, you can do everything that you can to find out as much information as you can. And again, this is not just depression. This is about making sure that if you're susceptible to cancer or diabetes or high blood pressure, these are all things that physicians need to know so they can be on the lookout and help you throughout your entire lifetime, not just as a teenager, but as you go through life. And finally, consult your physician. Your physician deals with this situation on a regular basis. They can talk you through it. They can offer support. They can offer references to make sure that you get to where you need to, or even possibly they may prescribe you a medicine that could help the chemical imbalances that we discussed earlier. To wrap up this discussion, I just want to emphasize some key points. First of all, sadness and even dealing with depression is a fairly normal thing that people throughout society deal with. This isn't a rich thing or a poor thing. This isn't a black thing or a white thing. This is a human issue that a lot of people deal with on a permanent basis. That being said, it does not have to be permanent. There's a lot of support systems out there in place for people who suffer in silence at this time. Just understand that there are people out there that can help. And it's important, whether it's something maybe that you're dealing with or something that a friend or a loved one is dealing with, that we locate our resources, that we make sure that we guide people towards those resources, and that we don't walk away when we see somebody that's dealing with these things. We address the issue, we help them with it, and we get them the support that they need. It's important to have those positive stress management pieces in place, whether it be reading, exercising, doing hobbies that you love. Positive stress management can be one way that we handle sadness and depression in a positive way and get things moving in the right direction. There is lots of help out there. Again, I'm going to identify them one more time. There are 1-800 numbers, there are websites, but here at Griffith specifically, you can talk to your teachers, find a teacher that you trust and communicate with them. Make sure you can reach out to your guidance counselors and talk to them. We have a nurse here, and we also have counselors that we can refer you to so that you can communicate with people and get the help that you need. Most importantly, as a community of individuals, a community of people that care for one another, it's simply important that we watch out for one another. If you see somebody that's a classmate, you see somebody that's a friend, you notice that they're not feeling well, that they're not acting like themselves, they don't have a lot of energy, maybe they're withdrawing from their normal group of friends, it's important to reach out to them. It's important to identify some of these things. Again, We are not doctors, we're not experts, but we can identify some of the issues and possibly refer someone who's in need, someone who's suffering in silence, and we can get them the help that they need. Again, we are the Griffith Panthers. We are here for one another, and it's important that we look out for each other. If you have any questions, please contact your guidance counselor or your administration. I appreciate you for taking the time to listen to this video, and I encourage you to get involved and be a positive part of what we do here at Griffith. Have a wonderful day.